I'm joined today by David Mulonas. So David, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome. I'm pleased to have you on the show. David is a published author and project manager in the IT business. And Cindy is his wife, and she's also a leader in the wealth management business. And together they co-host a great personal finance podcast called Something on My Mind. And this podcast provides a fresh take on personal finance tips and budgeting, debt management, and investing principles that you can use in your everyday life. But they also do it with a sense of humor, which is often lacking in financial services. And believe you me, I know that I've been in this business for a long, long time. Sadly, Cindy can't be with us today. She has other commitments. However, David, please share with us some insights into who you are and why people should tune into your fantastic podcast.
Basically, I'm going to say about 15, 20 years ago, I started putting a book together and I didn't even know what I was doing, but I've always been good with money. And I put this thing together because I was just helping people with finance and it was very hard to get published, and I got published. And it wasn't a big house, but it was a house. And I basically wrote it as a textbook, and I didn't realize it. And they told me if I would have created a textbook, I probably would be working for myself right now instead of dabbling, because textbooks, cost a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
But I've always been good at, I've always been good with money. So basically I've been helping people, kind of like a financial coach for many years with their budgeting side, along with the book. And I've had some, wrote articles and did a lot of things like that. I really should have been a financial planner like my wife is, and I just didn't do that, and that's my fault. But I've been able to work on that side of it to really help people out, and it's been very rewarding. But what I will say is that I married Cindy 10 years ago, and so when we met, she was in financial wealth management. Yeah. So there was a nice pairing there that even from the beginning, we always talked about helping and giving back, but we needed to establish our lives first. So through the time, actually in Cindy's case, for example, she was not high up on the food chart or food chain, and I saw her potential, and I'm like, Cindy, you've been in the business for many years, you're a woman, and they're respecting women now more, especially in the financial world. Yeah. And I think you really need to work on that. I think if you're gonna work a day in your life, you might as well get the most out of it and get paid properly and help people out to where you want to help them, what you're trying to achieve. You're not reaching that goal. So she really, really grinded out for a while. She went into like a management program, and then she was managing like 80 people at one point and really just working a lot of hours and time, but to get to another spot. And then she didn't quite get where she wanted to go with her organization at the time. So she branched out off on her own with an independent practice. And it just launched her to new heights. And she was able to take all those skills, especially when you're in a smaller firm, but they have a really large book because they're number one in Michigan, actually. Really? Independent practice now. So she does 401k compliance, and she manages clients' wealth, and she knows everything. So the woman is fantastic. So it's a nice pairing. So basically, her wealth side with the budget side, and then I know a lot about the stock market and whatnot in the economy, it pairs really nice. So when COVID hit, a lot of people did this, let's create a podcast, but we wanted to make sure that we did it right. So we bought nice equipment to start, and then we really spent a long time trying to get good at it, but we were horrible to begin with. We look at it.
I've been there. I'm probably still horrible, but I'm trying.
It's amazing. You were like, we've said before, it takes a lot of time to put in effort to create these things and get a message you want to send in, a chemistry and a flow. And because there's two of us, it took a long time to just sound comfortable and just roll things off the tongue. And now we just kind of look at our notes a little bit and keep moving, because we know all the subject that we're talking about, unless it's factual or statistical. We don't have to work too hard at it. But the mindset was, we don't want to create a show and then die out, because 2/3 of them do within like 90 days.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's not the path we took. Let's do this right. Since we manage money, we have money to spend. So we really put some time into that and grew that. And so that was April of 2020. And we wanted to deliver a message that was a little different. So we'll take a personal finance subject and really break it down, or we'll cover subjects no one thinks about, like the cost for weddings, or what happens to lottery winners, or why does we'll explain GameStop, but do it in a way where it's understandable. So people walk away and they get something out of it, rather than spending 45 minutes on how 401k works. We're going to take a piece of something and give it to you, but we wanted to do this in a satirical and a fun way, so that, we talk about some other things, but mainly we have a financial piece every week, and we just do it with fun, and we take our history and our relationship and our experience of life, because we're older. We're able to deliver a program we feel that it resonates with people. And I think that's why our success has been pretty good, because I think they're finding they can pick what they want to choose out of the program. They can laugh a little bit, and we're real, but we don't want to overly talk about ourselves. We want you to be with us like you're asking a question, having a beer with us at the pub. So we want that comfort factor. And that's why we did it. And I think that's why it's working.
That's so important. I think the advantage two of you got is you've got two different skill sets, and you come from a different angle. So it's good to hear that you are having these conversations as if you are a couple of friends in the pub talking about these issues, and as a result of that, you're talking in layman's terms, so most people, if not everybody, can understand what you are saying. And that is difficult in the financial services industry, because there's a lot of, should we say, terminology that is used that maybe the man or person in the street wouldn't necessarily understand.
Yeah, so that's probably takes the longest time when, if I put the script notes together, if I explain, like this week, we're going to talk about the meme stocks again. We talked about GameStop, back in February, but we'll break it down in very simplistic form, or even show a diagram. So I can just say, hey, I bought one iPhone for $80 from you, and I want it to go down, and I can cash it in at 60 and make $20. I know that sounds very simple, but to get it to that simple level is very important, but also capture the subject that people hear about, because you can't talk about 401ks all the time. We had to talk about the meme stocks. You got to talk about crypto. We talk about inflation recently. How does the stock market is affected by the economy? But it's difficult, but you don't want to be too dumbed down. You want to cover the broad spectrum, so anybody can come in and pick what they want. Because most podcasts only, I think half of them even get listened to fully. So give them something they can take away. And then what we also do is we always have like a 5 or 6 number of recap items at the end of each podcast about that subject. Say, hey, and these are like reminders of what we talked about. We find that actually people give us great feedback, because we give them that reminder at the end, because they don't catch everything when you listen verbally, especially. Yeah,
I that is one of the keys I got from you listening to your podcast, because I think that last part is so important, is that you're recapping on these important topics, if you like, and obviously the aspects that you've been talking about during that podcast. And a nice summary is useful for anybody, because if they have perhaps missed the point earlier, the summary usually just put it more succinctly so people can understand it, even if they've forgotten what you said earlier.
Yeah, and I think the two things that one thing that we think about is we care. So we want everybody to be successful, and we hope that comes out. And sometimes we get passionate at the end. And the other thing that we do, number 2, is that we don't tell you what to do. We give you the options of what you can do, because you have to be your own financial decision maker. And people, they don't look at personal finance, and I know we'll get to some of this later in our interview, but it should be like right up there with your career, your job, your family, if you're religious, whatever those pillars are, that needs to be one of the pillars. And that's what's forgotten about, probably globally, as you and I have talked before. That's what gets missed, and people don't treat it like that. So we try to give those people the options, and if they show that we care and we're trying to help them out, rather than tell you to go buy Microsoft or something, we're like, no, this is what you can do. If you follow these steps and do these things, or do your own homework, but here's the tools, you can do this. Everybody can achieve these things that we explain and talk about.
It's often some of the subjects that people don't like to ask, because rather than appear stupid or silly by asking certain questions, I find that's also an issue with a lot of people. But when they listen to the podcast such as yours, then those issues are dispelled, because there's no silly question. We've all had what we may have deemed as being silly questions in the past, but people have questions, and how small or big they are or silly they appear to be, as we all know, if you were thinking it, lots of other people are thinking those things as well. And financial services or financial matters is one of those ones where to some people it's a foreign language. So it's nothing wrong with not being sure of what something means, because you're not alone there.
100%. 100%. They always said that in class, right? And it's true. And even if you like, you're in a wealth show.
Yeah.
We're a wealth podcast, if you will. You can go find these answers anywhere, but you need the delivery. Excuse me. You need a delivery mechanism. Sometimes you need to hear it from somebody else. So like your uncle when you're a kid. Like sometimes an uncle can get you to do something where your parent can't, and so you need that other vehicle to get you there.
Yeah. I think as a financial planner, similar to your wife, Cindy, then often, and what Cindy is referred to sometimes, but I'm often referred to as your favourite uncle, or that trusted person in the family that everybody turns to when they have any questions around money. And I think your podcast is becoming one of those centers, if you like, of information where if somebody is not quite sure of something, I'm wondering if it's been covered in your podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's what we're trying to do. Like you can go, we've been out since April of 2020. So we're on our 63rd coming out. And then each week on Thursdays, we give a financial tip that's more like, hey, this is how you can save money on this, or this is, you can roll your closing costs in the mortgage or whatever. Like there's all these, like you can buy tires online that are barely used and save half the cost. We'll come up with whatever it is. It's not frugality. It's here's just a smart way to spend your money. And so that's how we balance it out. And we feel, especially as we keep doing more and more of these, it's kind of like an encyclopedia. Hopefully you can, like you're saying, you can pick pretty much any subject you want and we'll cover it. And if we haven't, send us a question, which we love answering, and we will cover your scenario. And that's the hope. Yeah,
I love those short tips, because I think that, again, the feedback I've had with mine is that they don't always want to listen to a 30 minutes or a 40 minutes podcast, but they do want something which is just a little soundbite in terms of there is something burning that's going on in their lives, or they're about to make an important purchase or a decision. And sometimes there's a quick 2 or 3 minutes, as if you're asking a question of somebody and it's there, bang, they can take something from it.
100%. That's what you want. And then you're helping somebody out and you feel good from your show that someone's telling you, hey, I really thank you for giving this to me. And that's the reward that you get from doing the work.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the feedback you get from your listeners, so have you had any strange requests in terms of topics to cover? Give me some examples of the types of things that you've been asked to cover.
It's not really anything strange. We haven't had any negative feedback yet, which I'm shocked, because eventually you're going to get some from somebody who doesn't like what you're doing. People will ask scenario-based things like, I'm losing my job and my wife needs to, here we invest X amount. Should we take my wife's extra money and put it into an IRA, or should we go invest it in her 401k? Something like that, scenario-based. And then sometimes I'll write them back and say, hey, can you give me a little more info? But we don't have to use your name. You don't have to tell me this or that. I need enough to give them some questions. But we might say, hey, depending on your money goes up and down in your situation, you can make sure you get the free money out of your 401k. And if you want to invest on the side to have more cash in your pocket because you're not tied up by the government rules of being able to take out without penalty from age 59 and a half or something like that. Yeah. We'll say something like that. We know we get a lot of feedback, not even on the questions. It might just say, hey, can you do a scenario on this? Like we're going to do this. We've kind of touched upon it in one podcast, but someone recently said to me, how do you feel about family finances? Do you manage your finances as individuals with your partner together? And that's a great subject. So these are things that, again, a little off the cuff, but stuff that we like to talk about, because everyone will just look and say, yeah, here's 401k and this is how I budget. What are the things that you deal with in life on a regular basis that doesn't necessarily get talked about that you can go find? And that's the kind of stuff that we get. Nothing too crazy. I will say this, we've touched upon the FIRE movement of late, and we definitely get some fiery responses out of that one more, I think, than anything, because it's, it's, it's very, very hard to pull out the fire movement, in our opinion, successfully, or without the risks, the caveats. That has really been the number one thing. So I won't go too long on this, but basically, if you retire between 35 and 40 with the lean fire to $1 million, that's what these younger folks are trying to do. And we think it's great because you're supposed to be debt free, but if you're 40 and you live to 85, which is very feasible now, and even beyond with technology and medicine, at least here in the States, I know it works a little bit differently in other countries, but either way, if you want to pay for your daughter's wedding, or you run into a health problem because you have to pay your own health insurance, you're also making little to no money. You're not paying into Social Security. Something could fall on your house, like a tree, and break it. I mean, there's so many scenarios that we just said to live that many years and not be able to get around Murphy's Law. It's very tough to do. And you have to live very frugally at the same time. So, and the third thing is you're investing your money at the same time. And when you retire, you're supposed to have capital preservation. You shouldn't be really into the market, and hopefully they're conservative if they do it. So those things together are very risky. And if you pull it off, do you want to live really frugally? And most people don't. If you do, it's great. We're not against it, but we just say, listen, these are a lot of big caveats, but that's a little bit different of a generation, and they're really stuck to their ideals, and we think it's great. We just give them a lot of information. Just be careful and be aware before you go into it, that you know what you're doing.
Yeah, there's another important aspect to that as well. And often I think this is missed, but we all need a purpose to get up in the mornings. So even if you have the means to do it, the days and weeks and months and years can be very long if you've got no reason to get up in the morning and have a purpose about what you're going to do in that day. So financially vital, but there's much more to it than just the financial aspect of things as well.
Oh my, yeah. I was a kid. I went up to, like, in Michigan, we go, as soon as you keep going north, it's called up north, and there's a lot of, it's not as built out. So there's a lot of it's a great state. Yeah. And so I went up to, like, my grandfather's cottage with my brothers for years, and hardworking guy, steel mill, didn't graduate high school, worked in the coal mines. I learned a lot of stuff from him, and he just was always moving and doing things. And then when he went to Florida, and then he got out of the community, and he just kind of went to this house in a neighborhood with my grandmother, and he just laid around. And he became I swear he was triple the size that he was. And I'm not a big guy, but he's smaller than me, and he triple his size, and he just laid there all day. And he basically got overweight and sluggish, and just kind of just wanted to die. And that was a big lesson for me to say, it's not in my DNA, I don't think, but I'm not that old yet. But it's really just implanted in my brain to stay. And I'm with you. You have to stay active. I mean, retirement's kind of a goofy word. It's not what it's cracked up to be necessarily. And right now I'm not working. I'm working on all of this to build it out. We have money we save, so I'm taking some time off to do this. And I'm busy, but there's part of me that still wants to. I might go do some side hustle work or some freelance or just contract work because it just draws you back in about earning money, even though in a lot of ways money isn't even real.
True. Yeah, I think retirement in particular conjures up different images to different people, because life has certainly changed to what it would have been 10, 20, 30 years ago. Retirement doesn't stop dead. Retirement can last for many, many years. And the way, or certainly the trend is to gradually go into retirement over a period of time and get used to, obviously, that lifestyle rather than going cold turkey, which a lot of people have done in the past. And then if they've got no interest, no hobbies, as I mentioned earlier, no purpose, then retirement can be a difficult place. So there is definitely much more of a trend of gradually going into retirement, or just changing lifestyles. You can work part-time, or you can do a different role. You can do many different things rather than just stopping altogether.
Yeah, well, we were hunters and gatherers, right? Foragers, way back whenever. So that is in the DNA, and your body needs movement. And again, purpose is a great word that you used. And here's the deal: if you've planned and saved well, and then you want to gradually do what you've said, or just when I'm done, like, here's the problem. If you don't have hobbies and solutions during your life, and if, like, my grandfather basically didn't have a lot because all he knew was hard work and
Yeah.
building things, and he didn't do anything else to keep him busy, or he didn't have any hobbies, lived kind of in a box in a way. So if you want to go volunteer, you can. If you want to go work at Home Depot, you can. You could, like, like you said, there's always somebody who needs help, so you can stay busy. And I think if you get your mind in that paradigm of that's all I do is work and go home, that's where they don't know anything different. And to get them to shift is a big problem. But you have to keep moving around and keep your brain active. It's just it's not scientific, or it is, but it's very logical. It's very easy to understand.
Absolutely. And again, another issue I think is that money is you build up funds and you invest, etc., etc. But it's about giving you choices. Because if you haven't got the financial means, you have no choices. Absolutely.
Great analogy. Yeah, we think about it that way too. Like, it's about, I always use the word options, but it's choices. I think when it comes to what people need to look at when you say, I want to retire or get to a point where I can have more of these choices, is that your nest egg, whether how you get it through it's an employer or what you save on your own or any government assistance. First of all, first here in the States, we never say plan on Social Security as a nest egg, even though it's designed for 40% replacement income. Don't look at it that way. You are your own financial manager. But what people don't look at is that your nest egg is one giant insurance policy. And like you've said, the goal is to make as much as you can or get that built up as much as you can, because you're not taking all of it out. So the bigger it is, because here we use the 4% rule, and that's even getting in question now that it might be too much. So,
we have the same here, but I would it's definitely being questioned to a lower level than that.
Okay, so if it's not 4, let's say it's 3, and you have $1 million, well, that's only $30,000 a year.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if the government kicks in some stuff, that's okay. That's great that you earned it to do that, but maybe that's not a lot. So that's why people don't think of it that way. And I've been around plenty of people who have money, and way more money than I'll ever have. This is super rich. I've been around, and I've been on the lowest levels. I've seen it all. But the one thing that even the people who have a lot of money will tell you is that you never have enough money.
No. We're all on different levels, and I think what people don't and often appreciate is that the level of income or capital value they require to give them the lifestyle that they want, and also at the time that you want it, for as long as they want that lifestyle. So sometimes people know part of this, but putting it all together is a different animal altogether.
That's what Cindy does with her work. They'll, and I'm sure other firms do it, but it's like a Monte Carlo or like a, you basically, or they call it an Envision. It depends what program it is, but someone who's active with their money will go in and they'll sit down and based on what they want and want to do, hitting these numbers, they'll put all that out. But those people are also managing their money, and that's why they're in there talking to her or other people. Like, the vast majority, it's kind of like the buy now, pay later in a way scenario. And that's the other thing, at least in here, and like I said, it's very similar to where you're at, but 3/4 of all people in this country live paycheck to paycheck. And that means when they hit 65, when you get Medicare here, it's 80% paid for, which is great. But that's kind of like that number people can get to. It's like a lot of relief. You can take Social Security at 62 if you want, and most people do, because by the time you hit 77, depending on your nut, somewhere in that range, it takes a number of years to even out if you delayed it, because they give you more the longer you delay. But by then they're like, I might live to 80, so I'm taking my money at 62. So, and that's, so, but the point is that most people, if they're living that way and they go into that 65 age, for example, they have to keep working, or unless they're forced out due to health or something like that, that means their debts are not paid off. And that's the other, and this refinancing is huge right now. So what people also don't realize is, hey, I'm 35. Well, I just refied my mortgage. Cool. Like, hey, I'm 42. I just refied my mortgage. Well, guess what? If it's a 30-year mortgage, if you pay that on normal standards, you'll be 72 when the house is paid off. Like, these are the things like you're alluding to. They don't think about the future, but those are the things you really have to think about.
Yeah. I think there's great synergies between your podcast and mine, and it's all about education to obviously the listeners, that there are so many different things that you can do to improve your financial well-being. And they're not always big things. They are little tricks or tips, if you like, that you can do, but it can make a big difference to your lives, not just now, but especially going forward, because you'll either have more money to save and invest, or you'll have a better lifestyle at whatever point that's going to be. But there are so many things that people can learn from the podcast such as ours, and it's only good news.
What if I can ask you a question? What's the one thing that you get that's the most valuable? What do you find that people are learning from your show that they're taking away that you've helped them with? Like when you said something little or something that's like something must pop up more than others, I'm guessing.
Well, it's really is about learning to understand that people can do most of this for themselves. So there is no complicated formula of a lot of these things. Is that there are basic building blocks in terms of personal financial planning, if you like, and that is to understand where you are right now, where you want to be, and then there is a financial roadmap that can get you there. And depending on what your starting point are, there are certain stages or steps that you take to get you there, but they're not always big steps. They can often be small steps, but you can do this yourselves with a bit of guidance, with a bit of knowledge that you may not have. And your podcast and mine and lots of content that we both put out helps an awful lot of people, and probably more so than what we realize.
Yeah. This is another show we might do, just more of the psychology of money coming up. But I say this: if I stayed in my first house, I believe I paid $72,500 for it. It's 1,000 square feet, starting out.
Yeah.
And I've been divorced since then and had one child, and now I have two others with Cindy in a blended family. But conceivably speaking, I have 5 houses now I've been in. Selling the other one, we're getting down to one, and then we're just simplifying right now. But I look back at all that. If I stayed in the first house, I could have paid for that several times over. And so money, if you have the ability to live on your own, and for the most part, barring anything tragic or unforeseen, but for the majority of the people, when you have ability to go live on your own, that means like you said, you have choice.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the money that you choose to spend is the choice. It's not, so people tend to spend more when they make more, and it's cool if you pay yourself first and invest at the same time. You've earned the money, you should, but that doesn't usually work out that way. So again, it just feasible. Sometimes Cindy and I will be on a walk and like, we could stay, just kind of funny, but if we stayed in this house where it's 800 square feet, we could live we could just throw money away and not even look at a budget. But that's, but you have a choice not to. Do you want to stay in a certain lifestyle? But you could. So for the most part, we'll tell somebody, you can do these things like you said, Tony, but in the same token, you can also do these other things if you choose to do it, but you have to make sacrifices to get yourself out of where you're at. Or if I'm not projecting for a lifestyle that I'd want, if I actually look into it, I got to make changes now, but don't tell me that you can't do it, because that is not the right answer.
If you set your stall out and you plan for something with small regular steps, you will get there. And to some extent, the worst that's going to happen is that you fall short, but you can still have a very good lifestyle in latter years. But you won't unless you make these plans and until you take these steps. But how people need to know how to do this. And that is where I find, certainly my listeners, they don't know where to start. Yeah,
that's true. Even though you can go to the internet and type in stuff, right? But it's a lot to take on. So that's the thing. It's not like learning how to edit a TikTok video. It's work, and then it's foreign, and it feels overwhelming. And I think you have to be willing just to put in the time to do it. It's a big exercise, especially if you haven't done it. And the longer that you haven't done it, when you're out in the working world with all the things you've built up for responsibilities and bills, it's that much more daunting to start out.
Yeah, and the fear of getting it wrong, people often don't start in the first place, rather than being afraid to mess up and get it or make things even worse. But there's one thing for sure, unless you make a start, you're not going to improve your situation. It's going to be down to potluck.
Well, I think it's fair to say that, at least in my experience, that once someone chooses to budget, manage your finances, and then that leads to putting your money away or investing it, it's rare that they go to the dark side and turn it to Darth Vader. They remain Luke Skywalker. And so,
I'm thinking about a lightsaber.
Everybody knows what the dark side means, even if they haven't seen Star Wars.
Yeah.
But it's true. Like once you get there, someone to flip over to go to the back again, it almost never happens. So that's the beauty of it. Like it's almost 100% guarantee once they get it the plan in place and actually start executing it.
Yeah. There's another spin-off from this as well. Most of us will have children. Those habits that you have in your lifetime, if you've learned these skills, these tricks, these tips, if you like, then you can pass that on down to the next generation, and so on and so on. And we all become better at this and benefit from it.
Yeah, I would say that my son said to me, maybe 6 weeks ago, and him and my daughter Haley they both graduated from college at the same time, and because they're blended. Yeah. And he and her got a house together with one of Chase's friends. Yeah. And so they were going through the experience of getting a house and renting it. It was a lot harder than it looked because the houses go so fast. So that was reality of the market, and filling out application forms and how do I do this and how do I do that, and security deposit and my income and all. And he's just like, it's really cool to be able to have parents like you that understand money, that able to teach us things, because most kids don't have that. It's funny too, like Haley's friends, they feel like we're middle class, and it's cool to be middle class. I don't care, but we have a lot more money than that, but it doesn't look like it to them. But Cindy and I, when we get together, all the kids went to a different high school. So we downgraded, bought this old cool house and figured this is a great place to go write it out, and they're going to be in college in 3 years. And so it's the best investment we ever made. But these are the things, and that's what's funny about it, because Haley's like, you probably have more money than all of them combined. But the thing is that they learn these tools. So, in the same token, I think that, with our kids, we, when they had time to do things outside of school, because two of them really took a bunch of AP classes and were good students. You don't want to get in their way of that. But when you have some time, you need to go work. You need to understand what it learns to make, to learn to make a dollar. And that's what our philosophy was. We didn't just hand them the car keys, but they certainly weren't, they weren't spoiled by any stretch, but they also were not suffering. It was a balance between having this and then earning that. And when they start making money, even as high schoolers, they stop asking it from you. Right? So, hey, I can pay for my own smoothie. I can go, I'll pay for my cell phone plan. Or the data or something, and those things started to transpire. And as they've gone through getting jobs and getting budgets and paying for things and setting up the electric bill and all, I can name all these things. They all have these skills now, and we're starting to see it with all three kids where they have the skills to ask questions and learn still, but they're getting through it, and they're not out in the dark, and they're going to be off to a really nice footprint because they really had that education. And that's how it's generational. You have to pass it down to your family members.
I think it's one of the best lessons that we can pass on to our children, with all of these things. But they'll also learn to cope on their own. Nothing will be daunting to them. They've gone through the experiences that you've shown them and taught them, and they know how to deal with these problems because, new things will crop up. But whereas if they didn't have these lessons from you, then they could be sort of in a panic. Don't know what to do, don't know where to go. I'm in a mess. But no, we've had these issues before. This is how we solve them before. There's got to be a similar way of how we solve these other future problems.
You just got to realize sometimes for a while, it might not be good. Sometimes you're going to have to take a couple steps back. That's just life. Things happen. And so you can't just say, well, all right, well, I got an answer and it's going to be fixed right away. It's like life is always a juggling game of negative and positive. And listen, if you typically manage your money well, you'll always be in good shape because you're creating insurance policies while you're building the big one. But yeah, when they don't know and they've had no experience they can wig out a little bit, and you're hoping that with enough guidance, but at the same token, they have to go through the experience themselves. You can't walk them through hand in hand the whole time. You got to give the guidance and let them sweat it out a little bit, and then once they get through that with understanding they made the right moves and what it took to get there, it makes them, again, that's that building of, okay, now I'm going to start looking at myself a little bit deeper into these other things that I'm dealing when it comes to life and money. And that starts building that block up. As long as they have to come out on the positive side of what they gained out of it, though, not what the negative was, the positive.
I think you've hit it on the nail. Life isn't easy. We all go through challenges. It's how you deal with those challenges is the key. Life is often, at probably best, 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards. But it's having those skills and the know-how how to deal with life, whatever it throws at you. And yes, it's not always financial. It's obviously just life issues, full stop. But the lessons that you teach our own children are lifelong, valuable lessons that they will put them in good stead for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I think this is the one thing I've learned in life. When someone has, even individually, but when you have a big problem, maybe like I was divorced, I was a lot to deal with, for example. Well, usually if you work with enough people around them and then you know something's going on with them, that is such a big thing that happened to them. It could be whatever it is. It could be a death, it could be whatever it is. It consumes them so that they let the other things around it crumble. The day-to-day, the management of your life around it, it starts to suffer a lot. And that's the hardest thing to do, is you have to be able to knock out and maintain your normal life, even if it hurts and you have no willpower to do it, while this bigger thing is going on. And that's why I think a lot of people fail mentally, physically, and financially, is because it's so hard to overcome that. And that's, again, what I learned. And that if I got this thing in my mind all the time, I still have to cook dinner, and I got to go do the lawn, and I got to pay a bill, and I got to maintain my friendships, and I have, even if I have, again, no mood to do it, I got to pick up the phone because I said I would. I have to go do this because I said I would. And then when you want some, you're going to be thinking about it anyway. And then when you're done with those things and maintain the drawbridges up on the moat and everything's cool right now in your castle, then you have that quiet time to go deal with the rest of it. But if you don't do that, that's where you fail. You have to be able to maintain life with one big problem at the same time, or two.
And you're always going to have those. Always going to have them in some shape or form.
Absolutely.
David, tell me what is next for you, Cindy, and the podcast and the work that you're doing.
So we just had a studio built in our dungeon down here, we called it. And it's an old house built in the 1920s, built under a garage. It wasn't even meant for a basement. So we spent a lot of time building it out. But it's really nice. I mean, Cindy actually let me design it, which was great. I can't believe it. And she gets to decorate it.
She trusts in you with taste then.
I can't, this has never happened. Usually we argue over what we're going to do. And, so I think our new partnership is I mainly get to design the things with some input, and then she gets to go decorate it. But yeah, but the cool thing is, and this kind of gets back to what we've been talking about family, is that Justin is Cindy's first son.
Yeah.
And he's in wealth management at her firm, and he's doing really well. And he's actually going to be leaving. He wants to go into video production. He's been slowly doing it, but he produces the podcast.
Does he?
Along with his girlfriend. And so we have all these lights and the TV and all the equipment and the capture cards and the video switchers. It's like a real video production. So Chase does a lot of audio and clipping of video as well. Haley got an internship at college to do the social media. So everybody's involved in the work. So we have like real meetings and learning and growing with this whole thing. But we wanted to get the video to hit YouTube. Yeah. And that's a long road to get your audience, of course. But that leads into we're doing TikTok now, but TikToks, we have to do them because that's probably our easiest outreach, and we've done okay with that. Trying to reach a broader audience. So the video is powerful because you can put it on all the social media where people tend to look at it and see it more because it's more personal, I believe. Yeah. But then we're also, I customized and built out the whole website. So the blog, the podcast is on there, of course, but you can go anywhere. And then there's the transcripts in the blog. And then I put other education, and I put my first 10 chapters of the book on budgeting on there. So I'm adding all of that up. And then we're going to have the merchandise and the probably a Patreon so we can do offbeat things that people want to listen to.
Yeah.
And then, then I'm going to reach out to more. I'm getting more podcasts to interview like yours so that we can outreach, and then I'll work it more into getting onto some news sites or local media and things like that to just kind of keep building it up. And then I think we're going to podcast movement in August, which is I think the biggest show in the world in terms of podcasting.
Okay.
So we've never done that. So we're going to go try to meet and network and just let me tell you this, Tony. I haven't even tried to monetize this, and I could. How to what a level, I don't know yet. That's not what we will eventually know that. Cindy and I have a bigger plan. We want to go in the next maybe 2 to 5 years if we can. We have our book to finish. But with all of those things that I just mentioned, it's more of a resume building thing so that we want to go out and teach. If we can go hit the road and go into businesses and colleges and high schools and just basically hit the road. And so we need to build all that up so that I can go basically probably pay a publicist a lot of money after we build this up to get us to move around and book us gigs. But that's ultimately what we'd love to do and get into part of the year, go into like a cool RV of some sort or a Dodge Sprinter, Mercedes van, and move around the country at points in time and just really go hit the road and help people because we love talking together and we have a common mission. And this whole thing is about giving back at our age more than anything. That's why we did it. And so hopefully that's what we can achieve ultimately. But it's, it takes a lot of work. So we're kind of on stage 2 right now.
I love that because, again, believe it or not, we are not million miles from having the same aspirations and goals. And I came from very humble beginnings as well. My mum divorced 3 times, so we never had any money. Life was difficult at the very start. And from an early age, I never wanted to be in that sort of dire straits that we were in my adult life. And so I set about building my career, not first of all, because I was an engineer. I was an engineer of big factories in the UK in my early 20s, which was quite a responsibility at the time. Yeah. I went into teaching after that as well. I was made redundant, and as you do with financial services in the UK, I don't know if it is in the States, but you fall into financial services rather than a natural decision-making process, shall we say. But I never looked back. I found if I found my niche, my reason why, if you like, and like you, I like to help people, and now I'm more probably obviously experience down the road, should we say, in terms of my career and obviously my own business. So I'm certainly in a position now where I can give an awful lot more back to people who can't afford to employ me to do their wealth management and financial planning. But I know, I'm only serving, I don't know, maybe 5% or less of the population in terms of certainly in the UK. And there's so many other people out there who need my help and advice or education, if you like, much more than it's possible. So these are the best mediums to do it, which is also our social media, whether it's podcasts, YouTube, whatever it is. We can help many more people by these means than you can on a face-to-face basis, which is obviously what my day job is. So,
yeah, that's great. And we love it. And a lot of times, if you have like a financial podcast like this, other podcasts won't take other people like you or me because they feel like it's like maybe competition per se. But I don't look at it like that at all. Like I'm really glad you brought me on here. Maybe Cindy in the future.
Yeah, love to have Cindy on as well.
So you and I have the same message. Yeah, I appreciate that. And we have the same message where other people might be looking to have a different viewpoint or monetization. You and I and Cindy have the holistic goal of just giving back. So we love the fact that, hopefully like this conversation, like you said, somebody gets something out of it, and then I spread and you spread, and maybe we find some new people, and then it grows. And that, the funny thing is, when you give back to people who can't pay you to do it per se, or you're doing it more of a altruistic type of thing, it doesn't pay anyway. And like a lot of the jobs that help people out that need it, they don't pay. It just doesn't. That's how life works. But you can't beat the greater joy of, feeling good about when you help somebody out. You can't replace that part about it. So if you can do that, and then that's what you get out of it, then, I think we're winners.
Absolutely. I think the one thing that we both learned today is that the same problems exist in the States and the same problems exist in the UK and Europe.
Yes, sir. Yes, it does.
So I got no doubt it's the same wherever we are in the world, and certainly in the Western world anyway. So, David, we're coming towards the end of the show today. So, if people want to listen to your excellent podcast and read your blogs and all the content you got out there, where are the best places for them to find you?
You can go to any platform that streams podcasts, Apple, Spotify, I can't even think of all of them, Deezer, whatever's out there. You can find Amazon, wherever they host them, we're there. In terms of social media, we're on LinkedIn and Facebook, Instagram and TikTok. It's actually SOMM.podcast. You can find that there. That's so we always keep those social media handles moving. The website is somethingOnMyMind.net. Okay. And we, again, the episodes are there. The blog transcripts are there. And then you can find other education that I continuously post each week to keep building that out. And so that is where you can find us. Okay, brilliant. I will put all these links up on the show notes. So anybody listening who wants to find them, there's a nice, easy way for you to do that. I appreciate that. And I would recommend anybody listen to your podcast because you can't fail to have some real insights and some great tips on some very important subjects, which are not as daunting as you may first think. Yeah, the funny thing is, I think some people are just listening for the humor side on the non-finance subjects. We all know humor is a great way to get your message across, and I had a guy on a few weeks ago, which was funny videos, and it was brilliant. The message was so impactful. I think it just proves the point. If you can do something with humor, then you are going to get your message across much better. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody wants to laugh, right? Of course they do. Be in a bad mood. You want to feel good. You don't want to listen to or watch something that's just going to make you miserable, do you? Yeah, right. I want to feel bad. I'm going to go listen to this guy. You know what? There's plenty of crime shows out there. You can watch those all day long. I'm like, have this many people really been killed? Yep. Actually, there are. You can keep listening for years to come. Yeah. Yeah. Not sure what that turns those individuals into, but hopefully not mass murderers or anything like that. So there's a question I like to ask all of my guests. And so I'm going to ask you the same question as well, David. And that question is, what does wealth mean to you? It's a great question. Wealth means to me maybe a few things. I think you have to look at it as an individual. And that's the one problem people have. So wealth to me is, I need to manage my own house. I can't worry about what everybody else thinks of me or how they view me, because they probably don't know the real answer anyway. So my job is to make sure that I put myself together with a lifestyle that within my means. And if I want to make more, then it's on me to go make more if I want that. And if I don't, that's fine too. That's a choice. However, the goal for me is to, when it comes to wealth, you want to be able to do things that you want to do in life as you go and feel comfortable that you're taking care of yourself for the future at the same time. And you know what that balance is, and you know if it's right. Everybody does if they pay attention to money. And so I have a plan set up with Cindy that we'll have enough money that we won't have debt, and we really don't. But when we're done, and this is what we say all the time, or I always say with Cindy, is that when you want to stop working, even if you choose to go do some side things or stay busy, is that you want to live the same way in the last day of your quote unquote real job as the first day you do live in retirement. Yeah. That's the goal. So when it comes to, does that mean do you have to be wealthy in terms of what defines wealth? Like, I think in the United States, there's 18 million millionaires households, which seems like a lot, but a population of 360 million, I don't know if that's a lot or not. By percentage, little, but most people don't accumulate even close to that. But someone could work a middle-class job or two of them in a household, and if they put their money away right, when they're done, they can live that lifestyle that they're used to. They might not be wealthy, excuse me, I'm sorry, but what they can do is live that lifestyle that they're accustomed to, and they're probably okay with it, rather than somebody who can't. And that's the biggest failure when you talk about wealth. It's like if you have to quit working or you're stuck, that you can't. You don't have those options.
Yes.
And then that's where the wealth part comes in, because you're not wealthy enough to go make your choices and you're stuck. So that's how I look at wealth. It doesn't matter how much you have, it's within what you need to live your life within.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And for me, it's all about having that balance in all aspects of your life as well. So it's relationships, health, both physical and mental, as well as your financial side of it. So to have that wealthy life, if you like, then you need to have that balance between all of those aspects. But it does. We've talked about this a few times, or we've mentioned this a few times. It's all about choices. You can make this happen. You can make these choices, but you do have to make a start and put the plans and the steps in place and learn about how to manage your own money in a much more effective way than perhaps sometimes we are doing already.
It's no different than saying, I'm going to eat chicken or pizza tonight. You made a choice. It really is that simple. You make choices all day long. I am 100% agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely. David, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. I've really enjoyed it. I've got no doubt my listeners are going to enjoy it as well. And I'd like to wish you all the very best with your podcast and all the things that you want to do and plan to do. And you've made a brilliant start. You've got more or less a family enterprise going there to share the same message. So I salute you for doing that, because we're on the same page. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Tony. I really appreciate coming on. I've had a great time, and hopefully, people like you and I are going to keep helping the others in the world that need it.